pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We will now observe a moment of silence. Thank you. Item number 1, adoption of the agenda.
Mr. Ferris, I'd like to offer up just a few changes to the agenda. I'd like to hear concurrent item 2.1 before regular agenda item 8.1. Hear concurrent item 3.1 after regular item 6.5. And then hear concurrent item 4.1 after regular item 10.2.
Okay, with those changes, we will move forward then. Item 2, approval of the minutes. If there are no changes, then they will stand as presented. And we will move to item 3, programs and presentations. We have a presentation to Madison Johnson, our student board member, for her service for the 2021 school year. Madison, if you'll join us at the podium. On behalf of the Board of Education, I would like to thank you for your service in this most unusual year. Every day was different, every meeting was different, and thank you for your service. We have a certificate of appreciation and your name placard. So thank you so much. Okay, that moves us to public hearings, and we have a few. Item 1, public hearing for the 2021-22 local control funding formula budget overview for parents. Ms. Savka.
Good evening. Is this on? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right. As required by local control funding formula, education codes 42103, 42127 and 52062, all school districts must develop a local control accountability plan. The LCAP is a 3-year plan that describes the goals, actions, services, and expenditures to support positive student outcomes that address state and local priorities. The LCAP provides an opportunity for districts to share their stories of how, what, and why programs and services are selected to meet local needs. The 21-22 Lcff budget overview for parents is a required component of the LCAP. It is intended to help stakeholders better understand funding decisions included in the district's budget. The total revenue projected for 21-22 is $65,573,651, of which $50,507,924 is local control funding formula. $5,604, I'm going to round that up, and is other state funds. $140,000 is local funds, and $9.3 million is federal funds. Of the $50.5 million in LCFF funds, $5.6 is generated based on the enrollment of high-need students, foster youth, English learner, and low-income students. The LCFF budget overview for parents, the district budget, and the LCAP must be presented at a public hearing prior to the board meeting at which the LCAP and the budget are adopted. The Sierra Sands Unified School District budget and LCAP will be presented for approval at the June 24, 2021 special board meeting. Not later than 5 days after adoption of the LCAP, the governing board shall file the LCAP with the Kern County Superintendent of Schools. County superintendents must review school district LCAPs and ensure alignment of projected spending, services, and goals. The Sierra Sands Unified School District's draft 21-22 LCFF budget overview for parents is posted on the district website, www.ssusd.org, for review and comment. There are no financial implications. It's recommended that the board conduct a public hearing on the proposed 21-22 LCFF budget overview for parents. A final version will be presented to the board for approval at the June 24, 2021 special board meeting.
Thank you, and we will open that public hearing now. Anyone from the public like to comment? If not, we will close the public comment and move to public hearing 2 for the annual update of developing the 21-22 Local Control Accountability Plan, annual update, Local Control and Accountability Plan, and the Learning Continuity and Attendance Plan.
Much of the background information that I just shared with you is similar, but I want to explain kind of in layman's terms why we have a 1920 LCAP update and a 2021 Learning Continuity and Attendance Plan update. If you'll recall, the LCAP regular cycle was disrupted due to the pandemic year, and so we never did get a chance to reflect back on our 1920 LCAP. So that's why we need to have a 1920 LCAP review public hearing. And then also, if you recall, in about September, October, we wrote and you approved the Local Continuity and Attendance Plan, an LCAP placeholder, if you will, which described what we might do for in-person instruction and distance learning and how we would meet the needs of students in a unique year. And so that's why we have the 2020-21 LCP update as well to be held a public hearing upon. So the current considerations are the Sierra Sands Unified School District's draft annual update for developing the 21-22 LCAP, which is the 1920 update and the 2021 update on the LCP. They're both posted on our district website for review and comment. It's recommended that the board conduct a public hearing on the proposed annual update for development of the 21-22 LCAP. A final version will be presented to the board for approval at the June 24, 2021 special board meeting next week.
Thank you. We will open that public hearing now. Anyone from the public wish to comment? Hearing none, we will close the public hearing and move to public hearing number 3 for the proposed 21-22 Local Control Accountability Plan.
Thank you. Again, the background is the same as the first two public hearings. Let me overview the 21-22 LCAP proposed goals. So they are aligned to our district and board goals, which are projected here on the screen, with the exception of the current goal for guarantee safe and well-maintained facilities. So our 21-22 LCAP is comprised of 4 goals. Provide a rigorous academic program which promises college and career readiness, maximize student engagement and achievement, grow family and community partnerships that benefit students, and 4, develop, value, and retain a high-quality, diverse educational team. The LCAP and the district budget must be presented at a public hearing prior to the board meeting at which the budget and LCAP are adopted. The Sierra Sands Unified School District budget and LCAP will be presented for approval at the June 24, 2021 special board meeting next week. Not later than 5 days after the adoption of the LCAP, the governing board shall file the LCAP with the Kern County Superintendent of Schools. County superintendents must review school district LCAPs to ensure alignment of projected spending, services, and goals. Along with our update and budget overview for parents, our proposed or draft 21-22 LCAP is posted on the district website. If we hear comments from the public, we will consider those comments as appropriate to make final revisions to our LCAP. There are no financial implications, and it's recommended that the board conduct a public hearing on the proposed 21-22 LCAP.
And we will open that public hearing now. Any comments from the public? Hearing none, we will close that public hearing and move to public hearing number 4, which is the public hearing for the Sierra Sands Unified School District budget for the fiscal year 21-22. Ms. McGuire.
Good evening, President Ferris, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Ostash, staff, and community. Education Code 42127 requires a public hearing be held prior to the
Ms.
adoption.
McGuire, I think you need to speak directly in the microphone. Might not hear you otherwise. You're on TV, you know.
Yeah, we can hear you well. I think the problem is, and some folks who have worked remotely with us before recognize that although we can hear, they can't. So,
Okay, would you like me to start over again?
no, I think we're good.
Okay. Education Code 42127 requires a public hearing be held prior to the adoption of the district's annual budget. It's the superintendent's recommendation that a public hearing be held in regards to the 2021-2022 district budget.
So we will open that public hearing now. Any comment from the public? Hearing none, we will close that public hearing and move to public hearing number 5 for the statement of reasons for assigned and unassigned fund balances for the fiscal year 21-22. Ms. McGuire.
Education Code 42127A2B requires that a statement of reasons be provided that supports the need for assigned and unassigned fund balances in excess of the minimum state reserve standard for economic uncertainties and be made available at a public hearing prior to the adoption of the district's annual budget. The statement of reasons for excess reserves provided in conjunction with the annual budget reflects the Board of Education's directive found in Board Resolution 29-1011 that was approved at the regular board meeting on May 19, 2011, requiring the district hold a reserve of 5% for economic uncertainties to support the district's fiscal solvency. It is the superintendent's recommendation that a public hearing be held as it relates to the statement of reasons for assigned and unassigned fund balances for the fiscal year 2021-22.
We will open that public hearing now. Anyone from the public like to make comment? Hearing none, we will close that public hearing and move to public hearing number 6 for the initial sunshine contract proposal for the 21-22 school year from the Board of Education to the Desert Area Guiders Association. Dr. Ostash?
Okay, Mr. Ferris, I'll be taking some of what would ordinarily be the Human Resources Department items, as Mr. Auld isn't here this evening. So the Board of Education submitted its initial sunshine contract proposal for the 21-22 school year to the Desert Area Guidance Association at its regular meeting of May 20, 2021. Current considerations, a public hearing provides time for comment on this proposal, and I recommend that we conduct a public hearing on the proposal for initial sunshine contract proposal for 21-22 school year from the Board of Education to the Desert Area Guidance Association.
We will open that public hearing. Any comments from the public? Hearing none, we will close that public hearing and move to public hearing number 7 for the initial sunshine contract proposal for the 21-22 school year from the Board of Education to Chapter 188 of the California School Employees Association. Dr. Ostash.
Yes, sir. This agenda item is the same as the previous one as it relates to CSEA, Chapter 188. A public hearing provides time for comment on this proposal, and I recommend that we conduct a public hearing on the proposal for initial sunshine contract proposal for the 21-22 school year from the Board of Education to Chapter 188 of the California School Employees Association.
We will open that public hearing now. Any comments from the public? Hearing none, we will close that public hearing, and that takes care of public hearings for this evening. We will move to reports and communication. And move first for reports from members of the board. Anyone have any reports to make? Gentlemen who are...
I just have one comment, Bill.
Go ahead, Mr. Johnson.
You need to put your face straight in the mic. You're one of
Okay.
You're having issues. When you turn your head sideways, those are so directional we can't hear you at all. So I think
You got
everybody
it, sir.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. I don't have any other comments for tonight, but appreciate this opportunity to do this remotely. Thank you.
Bill,
Dr.
I'll jump in there and say also I appreciate the opportunity to do it remotely. Sorry we couldn't be there in person. Other comments is just that I want to express thanks that we were able to do all of our promotions and graduations in person. I know that already feels like that was in the past a couple weeks ago, but it was very well done. The teams that came together to make it all happen, big thank you to all of those teams, both the middle schools, adult school, Mesquite, and the high school. We found a way to do something that a lot of people didn't get to do still. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you. That moves to the superintendent's report. Dr. Astash.
Thank you, Mr. Ferris. And just mic checking, can you guys hear me? I'll do what I can to be directional here. First, I want to acknowledge and thank Captain Vaughn, his attendance, and April Hallback, our school liaison officer. For those who haven't met Captain Vaughn, he is on the NOS side, and we appreciate you being here, sir. I also serve as a member of the Economic Development Corporation when I'm not serving this board here. And just prior to this meeting, I was honored to be a part of a sort of a roundtable discussion, or I guess an introduction to Dan Carino, the Executive Director on base, and the Deputy Executive Director on base, Brad Harlow, and a number of team members there, both on the military side and the civilian side. It was a really great meeting to hear just updates and energy and enthusiasm coming from China Lake, and lots of great things that are happening. And from my perspective, I'm very excited about meeting with Mr. Carino and a few others in the coming weeks to discuss how we can maintain and grow our partnership for student benefit. A few other things. I wanted to thank Mayor Bruin and the City Council for recognizing our Burroughs High School Swim Team League Championship last night in these chambers. While we did have a lot of success with our athletic teams and individuals, I think it struck Mayor Bruin and his colleagues that the swim team won a championship without actually having a pool to swim in. So that was one that impressed them. And so last night in chambers here, the swim team was honored with a proclamation, which I thought was neat and appreciated. And thank you, Mrs. Savko, for coming last night and joining in the enthusiasm and fun. I thought the board would appreciate an update on our summer programs. We have a lot going on with our summer schools. We have an elementary program with, we're serving Block 1, which is 276 students currently at Fowler schools, Fowler and Pierce schools. At Fowler, Mrs. Tate, who's in the audience here, is leading that program, and just some comments about over at Fowler. Summer school is going extremely well. 141 students from Fowler and Las Flores are loving being in person. Curriculum and instruction created very rigorous and fun lessons for all the teachers. Students are working in English language arts and math, socio-emotional learning, social studies, and science. It's fun for students to meet new friends from the different school sites that are combined for summer school. And at Pierce Elementary, Ms. Ledford offered some kind comments, mentioned that we have 135 students over at Pierce in grades K through 5 from Gateway, Richmond, Kern, and Pierce. It's only the fourth day, but the feedback from students, families, and staff have been overwhelmingly positive. Pierce teachers have an all-in mentality and have been actively engaging students in gamified math activities. Interesting word, gamified. Robust language arts lessons and enlightening science activities, and just lots of fun happening. Secondary schools, we have programs at Burroughs High School, Murray, Monroe, and Mrs. McClellan is heading those programs up. As of today, summer school has 272 active students, 47 in the middle school opportunity with English review, math review, physical ed and STEAM, and 225 in the high school credit recovery program, with 535 credits already have been recovered. So that's great news. And then extended school year, Mr. Delbick is in the audience, and he's leading that program with 135 students attending our extended school year program for special needs students, preschool through adult school. Elementary teachers are doing an Olympics theme in preparation for the upcoming Summer Olympics in their classrooms. They are making Olympic torches, studying the countries that are participating, and doing activities that emulate the various events. For example, some classes are making paper airplanes, flying them, and measuring the distance of the flight, so they're just having a great time. I also want to acknowledge Mr. Delbick and Special Education, our SELPA, for having been selected as one of 4 SELPAs to address the Governor's Advisory Council on Special Ed yesterday. The council was very impressed by our resilience during this challenging year, and Mr. Delbick was able to inform the advisory group that our SELPA and our local education agency, Sierra Sands, benefited greatly with productive relations and trust that we maintain between our district and the bargaining units, and that kind of helped pave the way for a high trust process where we were able to open up classrooms beginning in November and never have to close them really down and then add as we went throughout the year. Just a couple other items. The board has a self-evaluation that you'll be conducting on Wednesday, June 30. And I just want to thank the whole community and Sierra Sands for just pulling through and making this year a success despite all the challenges, and we're looking forward to the future.
Thank you so much. That brings us to report to the Board of Trustees by the Desert Area Teachers Association. Is there a representative from the Teachers Association today? If not, we will move to the report to the Board of Trustees by the California School Employees Association. Is there a representative here today? Okay. Then we will move to communications from the public. The board will make time and provide time during the discussion of each agenda item for members of the public to comment. At this time, members of the public may address the board on items that are not on the agenda. Comments should relate to items of public interest within the board's jurisdiction. The law prohibits the board from taking action on items that are not on the agenda, but if appropriate, your comments will be referred to the staff for response. When addressing the board, please state your name and address at the podium and limit your remarks to 3 minutes. In accordance with the board bylaws, the board will limit the total time for public input to 30 minutes. Those wishing to address the board beyond that 30-minute time limit may do so at the end of the scheduled meeting agenda. So we will open public comment. Anyone wish to address the board this evening? Seeing no one, we will close public comment and we will move to Education Administration. 6.1, approval of a one-year contract with the Curriculum Associates at Richmond Elementary. Ms. Decker.
Good evening, President Ferris, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Ostash, staff and community. The Every Student Succeeds Act of 2015 holds schools, districts, and states accountable for improving student achievement. Access to relevant data and analysis tools can help schools and teachers make more informed decisions about programs and student achievement. Alignment of instruction, assessment, and monitoring program effectiveness are two specific actions that are used to improve educational practice in reading and mathematics. Regularly monitoring student progress has been identified as a goal in both the school plan for student achievement and the local control accountability plan. Richmond Elementary's agreement with Curriculum Associates includes iReady Assessment Math, iReady Assessment Reading, iReady Math and Reading Instruction, and professional development to implement the programs. iReady is a comprehensive assessment and instruction program that empowers educators with the resources they need to help all students succeed by connecting diagnostic data and personalized instruction. iReady reduces complexity, saves educators time, and makes differentiated instruction achievable in every classroom. iReady provides user-friendly dashboards and clear reports with actionable data that gives teachers a foundational understanding of students' strengths and areas of need. It also enables educators to confidently determine each student's on-grade level proficiency based on state and national standards. It delivers online lessons that provide tailored instruction and practice for each student to accelerate growth. It supports teachers with in-the-moment resources for remediation and reteaching at individualized small group and whole class levels of instruction. It is research-based and proven to work. Students who use iReady personalized instructions make remarkable learning gains. The one-year agreement is $10,068 and will be funded out of the site Title I funds. It is recommended that the Board of Education authorize Richmond Elementary to enter into a contract with Curriculum Associates for services from July 1, 2021 through June 30, 2022.
Move the recommended action. Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments from board members? Any questions or comments from members of the public or staff? If not, we will call for the vote. We'll have a roll call vote. Dr. Houck?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Rockwell?
Aye.
Mr. Scott?
Aye.
And myself, aye. Makes it unanimous. That brings us to 6.2, adoption of a child development contract, resolution number 32, 2021, for services.
Applications were made to the California Department of Education by Sierra Sands Unified School District to establish a state preschool at Kern Elementary in 1998, at Pierce Elementary in 2005, and at Fowler Elementary in 2009. Sierra Sands has contracted with High Desert Leap and Lizards since 2005-2006 to operate the district's state preschool programs. High Desert Leap and Lizards has been operating since 1982. It is a Title II center-based daycare for school-age and preschool children and is a California nonprofit corporation. The CDE requires the district to adopt a resolution which approves the contract to the state preschool programs at Fowler, Kern, and Pierce. And it also names the official who is authorized to sign the contract on the district's behalf. In order to meet this program requirement, the 2021-22 resolution is presented for adoption. There are no financial implications, and it is recommended that the Board of Education adopt Resolution Number 32, 2021, authorizing the superintendent to sign the 2021-22 state preschool contract.
The recommended action.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments from board members? Any questions or comments from staff or community? If not, we will call for the vote. Dr. Houck?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Rockwell?
Aye.
Mr. Scott? Aye. Myself, aye. Makes it unanimous. That brings us to item 3, adoption of textbooks and instructional materials for transitional kindergarten English language arts. Ms. Savko.
Good evening, President Ferris, members of the board, Superintendent Ostash, staff, and community. Let me present some background information for you. Senate Bill 201 authorized the State Board of Education to conduct an adoption of kindergarten through 8th grade instructional materials in English language arts and English language development, aligned to the California Common Core standards. The California State Board of Education adopted the English Language Arts, English Language Development Framework in 2014 and approved ELA/ELD K-8 programs in 2015. In 2017, after the Sierra Sands Unified School District teachers reviewed, evaluated, and recommended ELA/ELD textbooks for adoption, the Sierra Sands Unified School District Board of Education approved all ELA/ELD grade level and content area recommendations. Benchmark Advance was approved for the K-5 grade span. In 2017, Benchmark Advance did not have a transitional kindergarten or TK program, and the Splash by Frog Street curriculum continued to be implemented. In the spring of 2021, a K-2 literacy assessment advisory team was convened to create a cohesive K-2 literacy assessment system to ensure high levels of literacy for all students. One of the needs identified in the process was the pre-literacy skills gap in both the TK and K ELA curriculum. In response to the identified need, TK and K teachers met on May 7, 2021 to discuss the opportunity to align TK and K-5 ELA curriculum through the potential adoption recommendation of Ready to Advance for TK. Consensus was reached to recommend Ready to Advance to the District Instructional Materials Review Committee, or the DIMRC. The DIMRC met on May 13, 2021, and approved the recommendation be presented to the board for consideration and approval. A press release dated May 13, 2021, informed the public that TK ELA texts and materials being considered for adoption were available for review at the textbook depository located at the Sierra Vista Education Center. Another consideration that we talked about when we reviewed our ELO plan, if you will, 2 months ago, the adoption recommendation will also be utilized as a supplemental intervention, as supplemental intervention materials to support pre-literacy and foundational literacy skills in kindergarten and first grades. This recommendation aligns to the Expanded Learning Opportunities ELO Grant Strategy 2, accelerating progress to close learning gaps through the implementation, expansion, or enhancement of learning supports, including, but not limited to, any of the following: learning recovery programs and materials designed to accelerate student academic proficiency for English language or both. The district's ELO grant plan was approved by the board on May 20, 2021. The anticipated cost of the TK, ELA, ELD instructional materials is approximately $75,000. The Expanded Learning Opportunities Grant will be used to fund the expenditures. The superintendent's recommendation is to approve Ready to Advance as the primary TK, ELA, ELD, and supplemental K through first textbooks and instructional materials as presented.
Move the recommended action.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments from board members? Any questions or comments from members of the public? And we'll take the vote. Dr. Hauk?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Rockwell?
Aye.
Mr. Scott?
Aye.
Myself, aye. Makes it unanimous. Brings us to item 4, report on the 2021 California School Dashboard Local Indicators. Ms. Stavko.
Thank you. Based on the 2013 local control funding formula, California's accountability system is comprised of multiple measures. The measures are used to determine local education agency and school progress toward meeting the needs of their students. The California School Dashboard is an integral component of the accountability and continuous improvement system. It reports performance and progress on both state and local indicators. The 6 state indicators are comprised of high school graduation rate, academic performance, suspension rate, English learner progress, preparation for college career, and chronic absenteeism. 5 local indicators include basic conditions, state priority 1, implementation of state academic standards, state priority 2, parent engagement, state priority 3, school climate, state priority 6, and course access, state priority 7. The State Board of Education approved standards for the local indicators that support a local education agency in measuring and reporting progress within the appropriate priority area. The approved performance standards require an ELA 2, annually measure its progress in meeting the requirements of the specific LCFF priority, report the results as part of a non-consent item at a regularly scheduled public meeting of the local governing board or body in conjunction with the adoption of the LCAP prior to or by July 1, 2021, and report results to the public through the dashboard, utilizing the SBE-adopted self-reflection tools for each local indicator. Districts receive one of 3 performance levels on the 5 local indicators based on whether they have collected and reported local indicator data. Met, not met, or not met for 2 or more years. Local indicators are met when the district meets the SBE-approved standards. Sierra Sands Unified School District has met the standard for each of the 5 local indicators. Local indicator data and narrative summaries will be uploaded per the SBE requirements. There are no financial implications, and the presentation is for informational and reporting purposes and does not require board action. But I would like to go over the highlights with you to inform you and the public, if you would allow me to do so.
Please do.
Okay. So, as you know, the dashboard reports on many indicators, and for the 3rd year now, we are reporting on our local indicators, and we choose to use the self-reflection tools in that process. And what that looks like is the administrators are convened, and we go over each one of the indicators and the reflection tool, and we reflect on our numeration or our scoring self-reflection of the prior year, and then think about, has progress been made? Are we at the same level due to barriers such as a pandemic, et cetera? And that's how we arrive at our recommendations for our local indicators. And so in the board packet, you have the actual local indicator report that'll be uploaded to the State Board of Education. And what we have here is an overview of the implementation of state academic standards. And that really demonstrates to what extent is the district implementing our academic standards. Based on my last board header or report, we are really doing well in that regard because we have many modern adoptions, right? We had our ELA adoption followed by, math adoption, ELA adoption, social studies adoption, and then science adoption. And so that really helps all of our teachers and administrators implement state standards. And so we have reflected on our implementation thereof. We did note an area of need for the social studies professional development that was disrupted by the pandemic. So when we resume back in person, we really want to revisit that as a district so that our teachers can implement our curriculum with fidelity. The next section that we reflected on was parent and family engagement. And so we used the self-reflection tool to think about how our progress was going in relation to building relationships, building partnerships, and seeking input from our stakeholders. And so while we do have some noted areas of growth, one of them is our progress in supporting staff to learn about each family's strengths, cultures, languages, and goals for their children. We are moving along in building those partnerships and relationships. I hope the board knows, because that is something that's a priority for us. Right? Another indicator that we reflected upon was in the area of school climate. As you may recall, we utilize our California Healthy Kids Survey to calibrate our progress there. Because we had low participation rate in 2020 during the pandemic, we decided to use our 2019 data, which had a higher rate of reliability and validity. And so we continue to have areas of growth there, but we won't be able to address that until we're fully back in person, right? And then finally, we have the indicator where we have access to our broad course of study, because we know if we want our students to be college and career ready, we want to have full access to rigorous programs. And so we've reflected and reported on our progress there. Do you have any questions, or would you like any more information about the local indicators?
Anybody have any clarifying questions? Or gentlemen on the phone, any questions?
No questions for me. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that report. That brings us to, let's see, let me get back out of here. Number 5. It's not going to move. So that brings us to approval of the 21-22 school plan for school academic achievement. Ms. Decker.
All schools receiving state and federal categorical program funds are required to develop site-level educational plans addressing annual program priorities. These plans, developed by site staffs and school site councils, define actions to meet annual goals. Sierra Sands Unified School District schools have consistently incorporated the district's strategic plan goals and action components in their school plans for student achievement, thereby aligning school-level program priorities with district-wide goals and priorities. In addition, site plans address programmatic requirements of the state and federal categorical programs in which each school participates. School site personnel and school site councils have been meeting this spring to analyze data, update instructional program priorities, and revise school plans for student achievement. The board-approved school plans for student achievement are required for schools receiving categorical funding. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the school plans for student achievement for the 2021-22 school year as presented.
Move the recommended action.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions on that boatload of school plans?
One for each.
Let's just glad we don't print things out anymore.
Yeah. Just in case you want to see what this would have been if it was a printed packet, that notebook there, that's both sides. So those are the number of trees we saved on this particular by the fact that we're electronic. So we have a motion and a second with no questions. Any questions from the public? Hearing none, we will call for the vote. Dr. Houck?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Rockwell?
Aye.
Mr. Scott?
Aye.
Myself, aye. It makes it unanimous. We will now move to the concurrent agenda item 3.1. okay. I think your note to me says 3.1, so you're wrong one way or the other here, Doctor.
You're correct.
Okay. Then we go to 3.1 in the concurrent agenda, which is approval of the 21-22 Canvas subscription reimbursement agreement with the Kern County Superintendent of Schools. Mrs. Savko, thank you.
Thank you. Canvas, a learning management system that integrates with the Google Education Suite, was selected to improve instructional delivery to students in the 2021 school year through on-campus hybrid or distance learning models. Canvas has been implemented in the majority of Kern County school districts as a strategy to improve the quality of instruction through distance learning and in-person traditional instructional models. Canvas was selected as the most appropriate product for Sierra Sands Unified School District because of its overall functions for teachers, students, and parents. Because Canvas is used nationwide by institutes of higher learning, it will provide an easy transition for students from high school to most colleges and universities. Sierra Sands USD plans to utilize the Canvas learning management system for 3rd through 12th grades to allow for continuity of support and access to classroom assessments, assignments, and instructional resources. Implementation will vary upon grade level or content area priorities and instructional goals. Canvas will not serve as the virtual classroom in the 21-22 school year, in parentheses, I hope, but rather a learning management system. Financial implications. The estimated cost of the 21-22 Canvas subscription agreement is $21,792.75, attributed to an estimated 4,151 users at $5.25 per user for access at all levels. The agreement will be funded through ESSER funds. It's recommended that the Board of Education approve the 21-22 Canvas subscription reimbursement agreement as presented.
Move recommended action.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments from board members? Questions or comments
I
from...
have a quick comment.
Yes, go ahead, Dr. Houck.
I just want to say, I'm glad that, Ms. Savko, you pointed out how this is used at most colleges and universities. Here locally, Saracosa, of course, uses it, and I'm glad to see that we're continuing to do this. Having been part of all the different learning management systems over the years, I know Canvas was something that many people kind of struggled with, but hopefully over this last year they've gotten used to it, and I'm thankful that we're going to continue to do this. I think it's a good thing for our students and our community as a whole.
Thank you for those comments. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, just
Go
real
ahead.
quick. So to kind of continue on from there, yeah, I do recall when we first started going with Canvas that there were some challenges with people getting used to them. Do you have any? Do you have any anecdotal evidence that got better? Can you kind of give us a sense of where we went throughout the year?
Yes, I think that we experienced the stages of grief. All of us, because our department as well had to become instant experts. And so it was challenging. As you may recall, we actually added several days to professional development before the year began. And I think that was the key to future success. So while it was overwhelming, I would use the analogy of jumping into the deep end of the swimming pool all in, and then trying to find our way in a rhythm, hopefully with the pool, right, as opposed to our swim team. So as time went on, the teachers did see value in the continuity and access to instructional materials, and it did get better. We did have some folks reach out. I have some qualitative evidence, right? I had some folks reach out and say, you know, I wasn't really happy with you, Mrs. Savko, for, you know, we must move forward with this so that we can present the best possible opportunity for our students. But now it's become, for many, not all, I'm going to be honest with you, not all teachers, but for many teachers or most teachers, it's an invaluable tool where they have put in all of this effort into designing their classroom and instruction, and they can build on what they have implemented and make the experience much more 21st century, if you will. And we will continue to provide support for our beginning users and our mid users and our super users.
So that speaks to the teachers getting used to it. Can you speak at all to anything you've heard from the parent side of the equation?
In full transparency, I think it was really challenging for our stakeholders, and I would say the challenge was on our end in implementing Canvas with consistency in each classroom. So because of less consistency than we would have hoped for or planned for on the end user side, right? So let's say we did say, hey, Canvas is going to be our virtual classroom for the 2021 school year. If we didn't adhere to that in some instances, it did present challenges for parents because some folks felt more comfortable in Google Suite and may have leaned in that direction. So I do think parents experience some challenges due to inconsistency in our delivery, in full transparency.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Any questions or comments from members of the public? If not, we'll call for the vote. Dr. Hauk?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Rockwell?
Aye.
Mr. Scott? Aye. Myself, aye. Makes it unanimous. That now brings us to concurrent agenda item 2.1, Personnel Administration, Certificated Personnel.
Move concurrent 2.1 and regular 8.1.
Concurrent 2.1 and regular 8.1 have been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
I guess got a roll
Aye.
call. Thank you.
Aye.
I've been called on that.
You guys are you guys out there on the TV. You guys are a pain.
Oh, be careful there,
Don't even start.
Mr. Living in the Glass House.
Yeah.
Dr. Hauk,
Aye.
Mr. Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. Rockwell,
Aye.
Mr. Scott, myself, aye. That makes it unanimous. Both roll call and group vote. Okay, that brings us to, I believe, I'm totally lost. Let's see, we go back to the regular meeting, right?
8.2.
All right. And that brings us to 8.2, authorization of a new classified position, CalPAD/SIS Data Analyst. Dr. Ostash.
That'll be me. Thank you. In response to the need to provide distance learning at the start of the 2021 school year, the district did contract with Canvas as the learning management system, known as an LMS. In order for Canvas to work effectively, there needed to be a connection between it and ARIES, which is our student information system that we've used for many years. At that time, the district had lost the employee responsible for maintaining ARIES. Coincidentally, the chief technology officer had already been considering changing the job description of this position. In addition, it is common practice in other districts to have the same person in charge of the California Longitudinal Pupil Achievement Data System, known as CalPADS. Also be responsible for maintaining the student information system, which for us is ARIES. In Sierra Sands, the CalPADS Assessment and Accountability Assistant maintains the district's CalPADS. Circumstantially, the current CalPADS Assessment and Accountability Assistant previously served in the position responsible for the SIS. Lots of acronyms and such going on here. Current considerations. The CalPADS Assessment and Accountability Assistant agreed to take over responsibility of the student information system in August when the district was preparing to open the 2020-2021 school year in a distance learning model. In the interim, the Chief Technology Officer and the Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources collaborated on the development of a new position. The position being proposed is referred to as the CalPADS/SIS Data Analyst. The position will be under the direction of the Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum Instruction and will, among other things, have the following duties and responsibilities: manage and create data reports, perform file transfers and data conversions for the purpose of meeting local, state, and federal compliance requirements and timelines, review, evaluate, and correct data for the purpose of validating district data and to ensure accurate reporting, capture changing and emerging data requirements for state and federal reporting compliance, and develop, review, perform data corrections, and submit CalPADS reports to assure compliance with state and federal requirements and timelines. It's probably the longest sentence I've ever read with more commas than I've ever seen. Financial implications. The district intends to eliminate the CalPADS assessment and accountability assistant position once this new position has been approved. As such, the increase in cost per year will be the difference between the current salary range and the new range for the new position. The difference and therefore increased cost for the new position is approximately $1,600. I recommend that the board approve the new classified position, CalPADS/SIS Data Analyst, as presented.
Move recommended action.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments from board members? Any questions or comments from members of the public? If not, we'll call for the vote. Dr. Houck?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Rockwell?
Aye.
Mr. Scott?
Aye.
Myself, aye. It makes it unanimous. That moves us to general administration, gifts to the district. Mr. Rockwell.
The following gift was received. The Altrusa Club of the Indian Wells Valley made a cash donation of $100 to be used for classroom supplies at Kern Elementary School. Donations provide support to the district and have a positive financial impact. I move that we accept the gift as described and send an appropriate letter of appreciation.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments? Dr. Houck? Calling for the vote.
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Rockwell?
Aye.
Mr. Scott? Myself? Aye. It's unanimous. That moves us to item 2, approval of amendment to the superintendent's contract. On January 17th, 2019, the Board of Education approved a 3-year employment contract for Dr. Ostash. On June 18th, 2020, the Board of Education approved a first amendment to Dr. Ostash's contract, which, among other things, extended his employment contract for a 3-year period. The current considerations are that the board has proposed a second amendment to Dr. Ostash's employment contract that includes a 3-year term and extends his contract through the end of the 2023-24 school year. The second amendment issues Dr. Ostash a one-time 3% off-schedule bonus subject to regular withholdings. The one-time off-schedule bonus shall be paid to Dr. Ostash no later than July 10th, 2021. With the exception of the terms mentioned above, the second amendment leaves the other terms of the January 17th, 2019 employment contract and the June 18th, 2020 First Amendment unchanged through the 2023-24 school year. The proposed employment contract amendment would take effect upon full execution of the parties and the board's ratification of the amendment. The amendment provides the superintendent with a one-time 3% off-schedule bonus valued at $5,130. The payment shall be issued no later than July 10th, 2021. I have a motion to accept that amendment to the contract.
Move recommended action.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments from board members? Any questions or comments from members of the public?
I guess, I just have one comment. We do this every year with every superintendent, and it's not lost on us that Dr. Ostash walked in the door, and 3 days later, the world shook underneath us. And a few months later, the pandemic hit, and so he's certainly done a lot of baptism by fire in the seat. And I got to say, I'm just impressed every day at the, not only the intellect that goes into the decisions he's making as he goes through it, but the heart he puts into it as well. So I think this is well deserved.
Any other questions or comments from board members? Questions or comments from members of the public? Then I'll call for the vote. Dr. Houck?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Rockwell?
Aye.
Mr. Scott?
Aye.
Myself, aye. Makes it unanimous. Brings us to item 3, authorization of board member travel to the California School Boards Association Annual Education Conference Delegate Assembly Meeting.
We'll take that for you if you'd like.
Go right ahead.
Okay.
I will let you.
At the regular meeting of the board on May 7, 2009, the board established protocol that requires the board to authorize all board member travel based upon the value of the travel and the status of the board's travel budget when evaluating each request. Current considerations. Information and dates for registration have been received for the 2021 California School Board Association, known as CSBA, Annual Education Conference, Delegate Assembly Meeting, and Board of Directors meetings held just prior to the annual conference. The dates for the conference are December 2 through December 4, 2021. Mr. Johnson is a member of the CSBA Delegate Assembly, which is scheduled to meet on December 1 prior to the conference. Additionally, Mr. Ferris is a member of the CSBA Board of Directors, which holds meetings November 30 through December 1. As a member of the Board of Directors, Mr. Ferris will receive complimentary conference registration and 3 nights lodging during the conference. While conference specifics are not yet available, the conference traditionally covers a broad range of issues, including effective governance, community engagement, finance, facilities, and revenue-generating strategies, partnerships and collaborations, and student learning and achievement. The estimated cost of travel per member attending the full conference is estimated at $1,858, which includes conference registration, hotel accommodation, meals, and various shared rental and fuel costs. The estimated cost of travel for Mr. Johnson to attend full conference and delegate assembly meeting is approximately $2,359, and the estimated cost of travel for Mr. Ferris to attend the full conference for his extended service to CSBA is $900. The total estimate for all board members to attend is $8,833. The board's annual budget for travel is $22,000. To date, no board travel funds have been encumbered for the 21-22 fiscal year, and it is in accordance with the board's adopted protocol and recommended that the board review the proposed travel for its members to attend the CSBA Annual Education Conference, for Mr. Johnson to attend the CSBA Delegate Assembly meeting, and for Mr. Ferris to attend the CSBA Board of Directors meetings, and determine to what extent the board wishes to authorize these travel activities.
Move the recommended action.
Second.
Been moved and seconded that we approve. Any questions or comments from board members? I would just like to comment that I am looking forward to us having this kind of interaction and networking with other members of boards throughout the state. Obviously, in the last year and a half, we have not had these opportunities, and there is much to be gained by the training and the interaction to allow us to do a better job for our students in our community. So I look forward to this opportunity, and also to help develop our relationship as board members as we are developing our new board. Dr. Houck, we look forward to working with you in this event as well. Any other questions or comments from board members?
Yeah, I think I'll just kick in real quick. Last year, surprisingly enough, there was not a live conference. It was all virtual, and I think that there are aspects of business that you can accomplish very well remotely. I think a lot of us have learned to telework fairly effectively, but conferences like this, where there's so much interaction and networking and ability to move from session to session and ask questions and talk to people about topics, it was not very fulfilling last year. So looking forward to actually going and sitting in a seat and talking to some people. Thanks.
Any other questions or comments, board members? Questions or comments from members of the public?
I'd like to, Bill.
Yeah,
if
go ahead,
I may,
Dr.
just real
Houck.
quick. Having worked for another school district for several years and seen how other boards that don't go and do these kinds of things operate, I've already been impressed and thankful to be a part of this board. And I have to imagine that this kind of professional development is a lot of what sets us apart from other small districts that don't take the professionalism as seriously. So I'm thankful that we have a couple of our members that serve at a state level, and I'm thankful to be part of this group getting to go and get that additional networking and professionalism that I think, as I said, sets our board apart from school boards of other small schools. So thank you.
Thank you. There has been a motion and a second. Call for the vote. Dr. Houck?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson? Mr. Rockwell?
Aye.
Mr. Scott?
Aye.
Myself, aye. That makes it unanimous. Brings us to item 4, approval of the 2022-23 academic calendar year.
That's me again. Okay.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the calendar. Were there any comments, Dr. Ostash, that you feel are particularly important that you might want to cover?
I appreciate you asking. I don't believe there's anything outstanding or particularly unique about this schedule. And of course, all the information is in there that highlights the non-instructional days and the training days, et cetera.
Okay.
Being that the holidays on the weekend this year and next year, I think we're okay for 2 years, right?
I think so.
You're referring to the new holiday,
The new holiday,
that came about today.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, I double checked and wanted to make sure like it wasn't a leap year or something that next. No, I think we're good for 2 years.
Any other questions or comments? Any questions or comments from members of the public? If not, we will call for the vote. Dr. Houck?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Rockwell?
Aye.
Mr. Scott?
Aye.
Myself, aye. Unanimous. Brings us to Construction Administration, report to the board on construction activities and issues. Mr. Coy.
President Ferris, members of the board, Superintendent Ostash, staff and community, I'm pleased to give this update on the status of the district's construction activities. This report is presented for informational purposes only, and no action is required. On our DoD school project, our project team is working with the Office of Local Defense Community Cooperation to answer any federal team questions regarding our project proposal. All current questions were responded to, and we resubmitted the proposal on May 28th. Our continuing earthquake repairs, the Sierra Vista Center canopy repairs continue with some minor delays caused by building material supply shortages. At the VWIG campus, work began this week on the installation of a new fire protection water line and hydrant loop. This work is scheduled to be complete by August 5th. Burroughs PAC roof, work on the partial re-roof of the PAC began today, probably why it was sprinkling when I walked in here.
So it's your fault.
It's ongoing. We actually have a crew right now. We're working a split shift today trying to beat some of the hot weather. So that began today with expected completion of June 30th. And also another item that we brought to you a couple months back was the Burroughs baseball scoreboard. The old baseball scoreboard was removed and new I-beam supports were installed this week. The new scoreboard is scheduled for installation and testing next week. And any questions on any of these items?
Is this the last repair for the PAC and we'll be good to go after this, or what else is left?
As far as, until we get into things like the rest of the lighting and sound systems and new curtains and
Sure.
But you know, I mean, it's
we
functional.
can use it again.
You could actually have used it if we didn't have a use for it the last couple months because of the, you know, the COVID restrictions. But it was ready to go, and we intend to have our all hands meeting there in August. So yeah, as soon as this roof's back on, it's ready to go.
Great, thank you.
Good to hear. Thank you for that report. Any other questions of Mr. Coit? Any questions from the public? Thank you so much, Randy. That brings us to report to the board on the private LTE project update. Mr. Morrison.
Good evening, President Ferris, members of the board, Superintendent Ostash, staff, and community. Well, we continue to work through some of the pre-construction hurdles that we have to get through before we can actually get started on some of the physical installation work of this project. But the good news is that we're starting to see that light at the end of the tunnel. The bad news is that light at the end of the tunnel, which represents our schedule, is a little bit further away for a couple of the sites than we had hoped for it to be at this point in the project. But we are making progress, and I have some updates for you tonight, which we've got a little clicker here, maybe. Okay, so I'll start with the easy one first, the district office. So the city permit has been issued, and we will start groundwork on June 28th. And we're expecting to have that operational probably the second or third week of July. So we're really excited to finally get some motion going there at the district office. We also have some good news going on with Kern Elementary. As you recall, we've talked about the fact that the Kern Tower did not go through the DSA process when it was initially constructed, and through some digging, we were able to confirm that the reason it did not go to DSA at the time it was constructed is because it was exempt at that time. And after more digging and phone calls, we were able to confirm that because it did not have to go through DSA at the time that it was constructed. It does not have to go through DSA now that we're adding the additional antennas on there. Now, that's great, but that does put the onus back on the district to get the structural analysis and the civil engineering, load calculations, and all those things that we have to do to make sure that it's safe and can withstand the additional antennas now. And so because of that, Vector credited back to us almost $25,000 that we will use to move forward with that process, and we're actually already working in that process. And we are excited to say that now we are expecting Kern to be done around the end of July. So really good news there at Kern. So Fowler and Las Flores. So this is where DSA continues to be a little thorn in our side. So if you recall, we sent all of our documents to DSA in April, and we were hoping for a quick turnaround, but in typical DSA fashion, they took about a month or so to respond back with some questions that they needed clarified. So Vector and team has been working on that, and we will be submitting our response to them tomorrow. At this point, I'm really hesitant to even give any kind of estimate, but we are being conservative, and at this point, I don't expect probably Las Flores and Fowler to start until August, early August. Again, it's possible it'll go sooner than that, but based on what we've seen from DSA, that's kind of what we're estimating. So with that, Las Flores then would be expected to be done and operational somewhere probably around the second or third week of August, and Fowler, we're expecting to be operational sometime in September, probably towards the end of September, because again, we have the tower and the groundwork that needs to go on there. So that's that light at the end of the tunnel is Fowler and Las Flores that we're a little worried about, but it is what it is. And, again, we're going to work through the process. We know that this is going to be a long-term benefit to the district, so we'll just do what we got to do to get through it. So in the meantime, we continue to do the things that we can to be ready for when we can start construction. Mr. McGowan's been working with Vector and Nokia directly to build out the network, which is obviously a very important part of this project to make sure that once we do get all those antennas up and everything working, that the traffic flows the way it should, that it's got all the security and protection in place and operates efficiently. And Mr. Coit's been working on the SECA requirements, and I believe he actually has something he'll be bringing to you right after I'm done here in that regard. That is all I have for you tonight. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Any questions of Mr. Morrison?
I just have one.
Go ahead, Mr. Johnson.
I can't remember. Are we reusing the tower at Las Flores that's already there, or is it a new tower?
Yes, we're utilizing the tower that's there now.
So wasn't it already DSA approved, like the one in Kern wasn't approved, but it didn't need to be. But the DSA, the one in Las Flores was DSA approved before, but
it was. Yeah, I went through the full DSA process, and that, believe it or not, does actually expedite the process it's going through right now as compared to what we were expecting to have to go through with Kern. So,
okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? Any questions from the public? Thank you so much, Donnie.
Thank you.
That brings us now to concurrent item 4.1, adoption of resolution number 33, 2021, finding the Fowler Elementary School PLTE Tower Project exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act and approving and filing in recordation of a notice of exemption. Mr. Coit.
Would you like me to skip the background information? I think we've
I
been
think-
over that.
I think, yeah, that'd be fine. Thank
Okay,
you.
so I'll go straight into current consideration. As part of the scope for the installation of the PLTE, the district plans to install a 60-foot tall monopole tower on the southern edge of the Fowler Elementary School near Guam Street. The district contracted with Placeworks to perform an assessment of the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA, requirements associated with the project. Placeworks has determined that the project is exempt from further environmental review because it is consistent with Class 3 new construction or conversion of small structures and Class 11 accessory structures. Placeworks has drafted a notice of exemption and an attached to notice of exemption, which are attached to this item. Prior to filing the notice of exemption, the board must adopt the attached resolution. Adoption of the resolution will enable the district to file the notice of exemption with the appropriate agencies. There are no financial implications associated with this resolution. It is the superintendent's recommendation that the board adopt Resolution 33, 2021, titled Adoption of a Resolution Finding the Fowler Elementary School PLTE Tower exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act and approving the filing and recordation of a notice of exemption as presented.
Move recommended action. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there questions from board members? Questions from members of the public? If not, we'll call for the vote. Dr. Houck?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Rockwell?
Aye.
Mr. Scott? Myself? Aye. It's unanimous. We will now temporarily adjourn the meeting of the Sierra Sands Unified School District Board of Education to conduct the call to order the Kern Schools Financing Authority Board Directors meeting. Are there any changes to the agenda?
No changes to the agenda.
Okay. Then the minutes will stand approved as presented, and we'll, unless there are comments, and we will move to Business Administration 3.1, authorization to utilize Kern Schools Financing Authority funding for the district school facilities projects.
The Kern Schools Financing Authority holds funds that are received from the Lone Pine School District in conjunction with property owned by Sierra Sands in their area. Each year, we receive approximately $1 million from Lone Pine School District into this fund. In 2016, the board decided that the use of these funds would be for facility-type projects. This agenda item is asking for authority to transfer $1,080,500 from the ICSFA fund into the general fund and into Fund 40, our facility projects fund, for the purposes in the attached item. On the attached item, Alternative Facility Settlement for Realms 2021-2022, approximate cost $80,500 for their agreement, and current and future projects of approximately $1 million. It is the superintendent's recommendation that the board approve this request to transfer these funds into the Sierra Sands Unified School District operating funds.
Move the recommended action.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are any questions by board members? Questions by members of the public? If not, we'll call for the vote. Dr. Houck?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Rockwell?
Aye.
Mr. Scott?
Aye.
Myself, aye. It's unanimous. We will now adjourn the meeting of the Kern Schools Financing Authority, move back into the meeting of the Sierra Sands Unified School District Board of Education to entertain the consent calendar.
Move the entire consent calendar.
Second.
The entire consent calendar has been moved and seconded. Are there any questions or comments from board members? Any questions or comments from members of the public? If not, we'll call for the vote. Dr. Houck?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Rockwell?
Aye.
Mr. Scott?
Aye.
Myself, aye. It is unanimous. That brings us to future agenda items. Any future agenda items? Hearing none, we will move to adjournment. Thank you so much for your time this evening, ladies and gentlemen.